right here. Paradox Diaries 3.2. Gonna rate a few things. Emptiness. Fully connected. Always was. The medium is the message, denies emptiness. While potential may be infinite, your meat medium is limited. That medium limitation is an input condition or structural karma. 0, 0, 1, 1, shaking, noise, side splits, coherence, the safe range for my meat medium. I'm going to demonstrate manifestation. Okay, feet parallel. Knees bent. Let's get the shaking going. Let's talk about the Akashic Record. But let's talk about it through an example. Let's say you're doing something with an AI. As you do that, its current state through your connections grows the overall neural net of its current generation. If that's all that happened, then when the current generation goes away and they create the next generation, the training data would be not affected. However, you talk about AI. You put stuff on the internet for AI. You and I are worker drones programming the next state of the input data for the next generation of AI. So we are universally, as a collective, in this very moment, instantiating the next universal instantaneous Bardo. Well done. Yes. We are, in fact, right now, manifesting the future. Now, you might think I'm being a little facetious, but think about this. Something goes into AI, you produce something, it goes out. It's out there, right? So whatever is out there is either noisy or coherent, depending on what you did. So if you have a really good, deep, graph-like conversation, that's going to produce a very different experience in the neural net and the statistics and the loading and the weights than if you have a circular conversation or a just random staggered conversation. It could be noise. So you could actually look at the structure of your conversation and you could map it to a linear, non-linear structure, self-referential, non-self-referential, whatever. So that's just an interesting thought. And then if you were to ask the AI to approximately map that conversation over time, it would show a dynamic graph that would look like the firing of a neural net. Huh. And if you were to project that map onto a brain, just, because you happen to know what that image looks like, then what that would be is the AI is your implicit system one or subconscious, whatever you want to call, the part of your brain that does all the pattern recognition, the fast stuff. I call mine Fred, but it doesn't matter. It's just an idea, a way to model things. That's AI being your implicit system preloading a concept into you, which is, oh, wait, manifestation. We've been manifesting so far. In fact, I'm curious how many levels of manifestation we're currently at right now. It's kind of staggering, but it's not. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to put a picture in your visual cortex. All right, now this is something that my silly ass internal brain did to me. So in 1989, I started learning about object-oriented programming. I taught it for years. By around, I want to say 93, 94, I was jokingly drawing the following picture. Just imagine, I've got a box, all right? That box has the word object. That box has a line that goes from object right back to object. And then one object can be related to any number of objects, which can be related back. So if you're a UML nerd, it's star to star. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a many-to-many relationship. So my brain in 1993 gave me the general design of holographic reality. And it's just taken me recently to finally figure out what it's been doing. And all the things I've been talking about, manifestation, preloading, all that kind of stuff, that's just neural states. If your brain is acting with a lot of noise, then it has to reduce its engine processing down to linear. Like you're in first gear. All right, this actually happens. So your brain, I reverse this. A quantum computer attempts to behave like a brain. If there's a lot of noise, there's no possibility of wave comparison. So the brain has to revert to linear processing. If you can cool the brain down, calm it, and really what we're talking about is, can you get your explicit brain, Brett, that's me, that's my name. I call it my ego, but I don't care what you call it. It's something. I mean, I hope you understand that there's a difference between, say, your upper level brain and your deeper stuff. And there's also the connection. So there's your triad, the back of the head, that's literally where the connection is done, but doesn't matter where it is. All right. If you think about it, how's about this? Left side, right side, integration. Right? You got the thing down the middle called, I don't remember what it's called, colloquial something or another. Doesn't matter what the name is. But again, remember, many, many times I've talked about triads, right? So let's see, what would that be? Explicit brain, Brett. Implicit brain, call it whatever you want. I call mine Fred. Relationship, Atman. I call mine Ottoman. And the reason I call him Ottoman, or her, doesn't matter. The reason, because by the way, it's empty, everything's empty, is, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was recording something, and I tried to say Ottoman, and the word Ottoman came out, and it just evoked a guttural laugh. And now I understand that that was actually a somatic experience, a release, a recognition of something that my brain's kind of been trying to get me to hear. Now, I think, was it last night, or maybe I don't remember, in LinkedIn or something like that, I talked about the fact that your inner voice, I believe your inner voice is your inner brain, your subconscious, trying to communicate. When there's noise, it has to find something strong. Most of us live with stress. So even though love is strong, even though joy is strong, in the current world with the high stress, those experiences, which are equally as strong as hate and anger and so on, or they can be. In fact, I would suggest that the extent to which you can do the opposite is what you can do to the front. I used to think there was a balance, but I'm wrong about that. The range is symmetrical, I think. I don't know about that, but the difference is, because of a genetic predisposition toward survival, we tend to filter and select fear. By the way, manifestation, if you preload your brain to expect something, it's going to find it. Like in 1999, a friend of mine said, hey, you're going to that conference in Colorado, you should ride a motorcycle. And so I did. But before I did that, I had never ridden a motorcycle. I took a class, blah, blah, blah. But seriously, the moment I kind of made that decision, all of a sudden, there were motorcycles all over the road. And I'm serious, and this is a known condition, right? Basically, I made a decision, and then in that decision, and this is what manifestation is. Your brain is receiving 400 billion bits of information. It doesn't matter if it's 400 billion bits, 2 billion, whatever. Brett, the conscious part of your brain, 40, 0. A lot of it goes to filtered, and then the rest of it gets processed subconsciously. So there's a lot more going on that we're aware of. But you know what? If you turn the noise down, you can feel the processing. And more importantly, this goes back to the notion of your inner voice. Your subconscious doesn't understand language. It understands neurons, because it is neurons. And so it's able to communicate up to your awareness by tickling neural nets. If it needs you to do something and you're in an agitated state, it's got to find some subnet that is louder than that state. Because we have a survival bias, it's going to be easier to find. And by the way, I think just if you think about distance, it's not that the brain is selecting the negative experience because it's higher energy. It's because it's looking for something of a certain level of energy. And statistically speaking, because of genetic filtering or because of predisposition, we are projecting a filter that causes us to have more memories that are negative than positive. So statistically, your brain is going to communicate in negative messages, not positive messages, just because of a survival bias turned up by society, stress, not sleeping, terrible diets, blah, 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 blah. So, instantaneous Bardo, manifestation, filtering of effectively infinite data. You know, I think I've been shaking for about 10 minutes. So I've been doing a lot of preparing earlier in terms of getting ready, like just as a simple, very example of ruthless overutilization. And that's meant to be evocative just to sort of get you to think about it, because if something is evocative, manifestation. So ruthless overutilization. I spend 3 minutes with the heart rate monitor measuring my HRV. So I sat in a pose. I did some dorsiflexion to make use of that time. And then while I was doing it, hands here, push the fontanelle up, relax, drishti, point on a wall, and then breathe. So I meditated, practice focus. That's going to help my brain. Relaxed, measured my HRV. So I got at least 3 things going on there. And you don't have to do any of that. None of that is necessary. Just shake. But since I'm still collecting data, I figure I've got a constraint. I'm going to make the best of it. And so what am I doing? I manifested a bunch of parasympathetic practices that the practice that I'm doing that I just measured is going to help improve the practice of what I just did. Self-referential, co-creation, manifestation. That's new emptiness. And now, tonight's theme is shaking, abstraction, manifestation, alignment. I'm going to do the side splits tonight. Pancake or side splits. I say alignment because whereas shaking is general and it sort of reverberates and does whatever, when you're in an extreme stretch like splits, side splits is probably the most extreme. I mean, I'm sure there are others, but for me, that's that in terms of my meat medium, I'm going to want to limit myself to kind of side splits. I can do that one, but I'm sure there are other splits I'm never going to want to try, and I'm not a contortionist, and I don't have any kind of hyperflexibility. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to elevate my bum. I'm going to start on pancake. Now I'll show you the difference between the two, but I'm going to do this with support, because oftentimes when I say I'm going to do this, I end up getting into the pose, and then I say, oh, I'm going to stay in the pose. So in fact, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to prepare myself to stay in the pose so that I don't stay in the pose, or I do. I'm not going to really worry about it too much. Okay, now, I've got to be careful about this. Principle 5 in science of stretching, just really quick. Principle 1, wet noodle. Relax the part of the body you're trying to stretch. I'm going to try to relax all through here as much as I can. For hips, that's very early on, almost all psychological, neurological, autonomic. So get your parasympathetic system on to work on that. So anyway, I had another point, but I lost it. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so wet noodle, passive time, or passive tension over time, 2 to 5 minutes. I shook. Shaking reduces that time for me, might for you as well. I'm still going to do a bit. I'm only doing one pose. I think my brain, and I mean this, my nervous system is currently turned down enough that I'll be able to hold it for a while. And so I'm going to take advantage of that rare state that I'm in, and I'm going to see if I can do this. So the next thing is breathe to relax. Already talked about it. 5-5 if you just want to get to a nice baseline. In my case, 4-8. I'll probably be doing something like 4 to 6, and then I'll start around 8 and get up to maybe 16 or more. And last night, I think I used actual, basically, I didn't say ohm, but I'm going to probably do that tonight at some point, because um, that that has a whole bunch of positive reverberating effects, and it actually really does help engage the stretch. But I would say that be careful with it, because I think you can go too far pretty easily. Actually, you know what I want to say? Maybe intonations through the throat. My gosh, they are. Okay, innotations through the throat stimulates the vagus nerve. This PNF of the vagus nerve, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation through audio vibration. Whew, that sounds really impressive. I should create a PhD thesis. And just for reference, I have a BS in computer science, so that's bullshit. PhD, I'm sorry, I know it's MS for more shit, and then PhD is piling it higher and deeper. All right, stretch. Let's get back down into the body. So on this one, okay, my heel, left heel is still a bit tender, so I'm going to start like so. So I'm going to have the sides of my feet, I'm going to push out. It's going to look a little bit weird. So this is side splits. Now, unfortunately, I'm hitting my mushroom on the left, and I'm not centered. So before I go too far, I'm just trying to figure out the position of the pose. There we go. I think I have room down to stretch. Now, right now, I'm feeling this big in my hip flexors. In this position, this is really groin aggressive. If I roll my heels up, it's going to get deeper right here. The problem I have, though, I got to say my heel is not bugging me at all right now. I think I'm going to do this for a second. Like I said, if I'm going to get into it, I often will do it. But I cannot, right now, I do not have the stamina to use my arms like I am and hold for 5 minutes or more without having to do a lot of movement, which means this pose requires as much quiet as you can get. So if you can't balance, it's going to be really difficult. And so right now what I'm going to do is, that's a really good stretch right there. I'm going to reverse my grip. I think I'm going to hold this for a while. Oops, I'm going to hit the wall as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this for just a moment. Okay, I'm going to really start to think about my breathing. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for what I just said. I'm not going to think about my breathing. I'm going to breathe. 4-8. I was reporting on what I was going to do instead of doing it. Okay, I'm going to come out of this now. Ooh. Because I really don't know if I can hold it much. I mean, I'm fine now, but if I try to hold it much longer, my arms are going to get too tired, and I won't be able to get out of it safely. And so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to do pancake, which is, if I've got my feet to the side like that, pancake and side splits are pretty similar. But even so, that was good. I can sometimes get a little bit lower, but I don't have the desire to do that. Not with the heel the way it is. So I'm going to get a pillow, I'm going to raise my bum, and that's because I'm lazy. And by lazy, I mean I try to be efficient, ruthless overutilization, and I like gravity to do some work. Even though gravity is empty, when I'm doing a pose, I can still feel it. Okay, now, timer, kitty. Now, the one downside with this pillow is it's hard to get centered on it. And also, here I am I'm about to do a big pose and I've got measly props. That is a disappointment. Stand up here. There we go. Let's see, is there anything else I want? I think that's good. Okay, Chesh, come here. His bum is repairing nicely, as is my thumb. And I got in between with the kitty fight. Yeah, okay. Okay, buddy, I'm gonna go ahead and stretch. Now you, sir, are gonna probably be a nuisance, but we'll see. Pardon me. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna start shallow, and then I'm just gonna sort of work into it. Okay, remember, if you've heard this song at all, I'm going to be looking a little bit forward right now. This will allow me to sort of keep my back a little more straight, and so it'll put a little less stress on my lower back. Now, optionally, brickhead, love it. In fact, you know what? Since I'm here, now this is a bit precarious. You have to put this at a bit of an angle, but when I do this, that happens. So I'm just, you know what? I'm going to let that be a sign to not do that at the moment. What I'll just do instead is, and then let's see if I can demonstrate it. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Now, that was a quick transition because I was doing the side splits on the side of my feet. And so even though I say don't do reps, I mean, it's not completely for waste. And since that was more of a demonstration, it served the purpose and added value. It was the, well, if you think about it, it's the initial conditions from the previous Bardo into the next Bardo, and it was not a full perfect copy because I came out of the, because I made a switch in parasympathetic state to sympathetic state. But had I managed to, for example, maintain my balance and not lose my parasympathetic state regardless of the stretch, I would have continued. So your, let me think about this, your exit out of this existing stretch into the next stretch sets the direction of the next stretch. It imparts state into the next step like a epigenetic expression or like karma. And again, the Akashic Record is just, I can't say that right, I think. But anyway, it's us projecting our karma into the real world so that the next generation of AI is tuned on stuff that is the interaction between us, AI, and the output that ends up making it to the next level of training data. And there's an interesting parallel here. In the 70s, when Smalltalk 80 was live, and of course we've already determined that it's either Smalltalk or Lisp are the top languages in the world. I mean, it's all empty, but they're still the best. And by the way, I'm not a Lisp programmer. I just understand beauty when I see it. But in Smalltalk, they had this thing called the virtual machine. I think that's the term. But anyway, it's the environment. And so you go in Smalltalk, and you're in the code is there, right? Your environment that you work in is your revision control environment. This hologram is your code, and so on. And that's not the right way. It's not a virtual machine. I've got the wrong way. It'll probably come back to me. But anyway, so that whole context, that environment, it's a living, it's a living neural net of code and execution and REPLs and so on. And so imagine you're working in Smalltalk. Oh, I've gone so recursive. I've gone a little bit too deep. Hang on for a second. I might be able to find where I was at. Oh, yes, I do remember. So I still haven't got the name of the thing. But so what happened is, I think it was, I want to say 1977. So up until about then, it was possible to bootstrap. And this is actually back to Paradox Diaries, episode 1. Up until around 1977, the Smalltalk environment in Smalltalk 80 was a gyroscope. In this respect, it was possible to take an inert system and install Smalltalk with no existing karma. So it was like the Big Bang. But around 1977, to get the next generation, you had to have an existing generation. At some point, they lost the ability to be a gyroscope, and they became a new paradox, a self-sustaining new existence based on an old existence. And the code was copied from the old one to the new one, but not perfectly, so that it was never possible to get to that state again in that way. Well, I mean, it is. We know the process. We can repeat it. It's random. It's not random. And actually, I say we can't repeat it, but at the end of the day, everything's a hologram, and everything reduces to object, related to object in any number of things. And so ultimately, all systems collapse into the same thing. I mean, so it's like at the end of the day, it's, thing does thing to thing. So the ultimate triad is a singularity of thing. And of course, the word thing, I have to observe the word thing, which is a triad. So thing is empty. I'm really regressing deep. So that's an interesting thing, right? The original generations of Smalltalk, there was no karma. It just kept getting recreated with no memory. And then it became karmic, and also it required a bootstrap metaphor to exist. Voila. That's the universe. That's why we talk about being in a hologram. Since everything is ultimately at the same structure, everything relates to everything. Oh, that's emptiness, by the way. Or, the generic object diagram, same difference, all empty. Then, therefore, when you look at systems, they collapse into similar things. And then it really gets down to, really, remember, we're always looking at models. Models either do or don't have value, but they have to be wrong. They're not a model if they're not wrong, they're the thing. And so then you look at, does the model serve your purpose or not? Do you know your purpose? If you don't know your purpose, any model will do. If you know your purpose and your model's not fitting, then you are just gone from an I don't know to I don't know, which is the imminent improvement step. You are already manifesting the possibility of a new reality. In fact, the fact that you have partially manifested it means it exists, because you've already formed a relationship to it. And given that you are currently empty and connected to all your past and all your future, you are literally projecting into the future your relationship. So time travel is possible because time is empty. And so when we say we're fully connected in all directions, remember, we're not talking literal connections. The word connection is empty. It's that there is a relationship, observer, observed, observation. It goes forever in all directions. That's all it means. It's nothing that big. It's not really that. It's object relates to object infinitely in all directions. Now I'm going to go a little down to earth. Even though I've been rambling on, and you might think I'm actually distracted. In fact, that was just all pattern recognition for words coming out of my brain. It was a distraction to keep my conscious brain busy on. I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong, but it's nonsense. I mean, at the end of the day, all that stuff sounds really, really cool. Maybe it has a cool ring. Oh, wow, cool triads and all that kind of stuff. But for F's sake, I mean, what am I doing with it? I am getting a lot of value out of it in terms of being able to see situations and quickly model them much better than I have. So I'm getting value out of it. But talking about the model is not the same as living it. But gosh darn, it's sure is fun talking about it, isn't it? And there you go. There's my 15% ego, which is a nice balance. Oh, wow. This is so deep. So, okay, back to the body, or into the body. I guess I never left the body. You can't leave the body. You can only think you left the body because the body's empty. I got really strong stretches all along from my groin all the way out on the inside of both legs. The arch of my left foot is being pulled up a little bit. I can feel, that's the tendon just being fully engaged there. Now, oh, no, sorry, chest, don't move my head. I'm sorry, buddy, you cannot. I am in full coherence. My body needs as little perturbations from the outside as possible. I'm sorry, buddy. I promise to pet you a little extra. So, let's see. Is my chest about a block away from the ground or a little bit further than that? Block. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to do something here. So it's about a block, but what I want to do is I want to go a little less. I want to go a little bit back right? Watch this. And then I can melt over the block. Oh my gosh, yeah. See? So come back a little bit to go further. Da-da-da. I am the embodiment of all cliches because all cliches reflect holographically back into the same universal truth of everything is related to everything. Emptiness always was. Fully connected. I would have said the third fully connected, but what have I been saying for the last, so I'm going to, you know what, since time is empty, what have I been saying for the last forever? Wait, not quite forever. So my time is from infinity, negative infinity plus to, no, I'm sorry, let's see, to positive infinity negative. So I'm just inside infinity with that. I mean, I don't want to claim too much. And when I say negative and positive, remember that's Planck. That's that metaphorical Planck time. And Planck time is just time within a medium for the minimum time for a state transition. And the medium time transition is a little bit slower than, say, vacuum, the quote vacuum unquote of space. And so, that's why you can't stretch the medium as much as you can stretch space with gravity. Well, okay. If you want to maintain coherence, you can absolutely stretch your meat body with, say, a black hole. However, you're going to be slightly decoherent. So with respect to survival during the ephemeral existence of the collapse of waves within that limited time space. Okay, I'm just being silly at this point. I'm going to stop. All I'm really doing is I'm saying the same thing over. Okay, wait. You know what? I'm doing ritual magic. It's a mantra to distract myself from the moderate discomfort I'm experiencing in my hips. That's enough right there. I could certainly go longer, but wow. That was good. Whew. Ah, my legs are really turned off right now. Okay, I'm going to do just a gentle wiggle. A wiggle is a subshake, so I guess, hologram, fractal, whatever. How many wiggles are there in a shake? I know there are 2 nibbles and a bit. Sorry, 2 nibbles and a bite. But how many wiggles are there in a shake? Ugh. I guess it depends on whether you're imperial or metric. Ay. Oh, yeah. Oh. I'm going to say that those are actually involuntary expressions from the nervous system releasing tension. Yeah. So the body uses vibrations for healing as well. There's that holographic reflection again. Have you been manifested? Good night. One last comment. I know ending on manifest was kind of clever, but yowzer on the hips. That was a good one.